What happens when the closest of sisters become the fiercest of rivals? When private tensions spill into the public eye, and even the strongest bonds threaten to shatter? Tonight, we step into the heart of a storm, one that has shaken not only the Kardashian-Jenner household, but also the millions who follow their every move. Khloé Kardashian, once a voice of reason, now finds herself pulled into Kourtney and Kendall's explosive friendship fight. A battle that began as whispers of frustration has turned into a war of words, loyalties, and painful truths. But how did Khloé become entangled in a feud she never wanted? It started quietly, behind closed doors, far from cameras and flashing lights. Kourtney Kardashian, the eldest sister, always prided herself on loyalty and closeness. For years, she believed her bond with Kendall Jenner was something rare, something unshakable. But that belief came crashing down when moments of distance, secrecy, and mistrust crept into their friendship. Kendall, younger, fiercely independent and protective of her own boundaries, began to step back. What might have been small misunderstandings grew like cracks in glass, spreading until the break was impossible to ignore. Khloé Kardashian was not the first to notice, but she was the one forced into the middle. Known for her sharp wit, her no-nonsense honesty, and her ability to hold the family together, Khloé was suddenly faced with a role she never asked for. She became the unwilling referee in Kourtney and Kendall's explosive friendship fight. And as emotions boiled over, her own patience began to fray. The fight itself was not one single moment. It was an accumulation of years. Kourtney, often feeling left out or misunderstood by her younger sisters, began to question Kendall's loyalty. Kendall, on the other hand, grew tired of Kourtney's constant need for reassurance, her accusations, and her dramatic confrontations. The tension simmered until it reached its boiling point during a family gathering, one where laughter turned into shouting, and quiet resentment exploded into full-blown conflict. Khloé, sitting in the middle, felt the weight of both sides pressing against her. Kourtney pleaded for understanding, her voice cracking as she described betrayal. Kendall fired back with sharp precision, insisting she had every right to choose her friends and her boundaries. And Khloé was trapped in the middle of a storm that threatened to tear the sisters apart. The cameras captured fragments, but what truly unfolded behind the scenes was far more raw, more painful, more human than any reality TV edit could ever reveal. Khloé, standing in the room, described later that the air itself felt heavy, as though the walls were closing in. Each word spoken between Kourtney and Kendall was a dagger, and each silence cut even deeper. For Kourtney, the pain was rooted in history. She had always struggled with feelings of exclusion within her own family. With Kim and Khloé sharing a famously tight bond, she often looked to Kendall as her safe place, the sister she could trust without question. But as Kendall's modeling career soared, as her world expanded beyond the family, Kourtney felt left behind. To her, Kendall's distance was not independence, it was abandonment. Kendall, however, saw the story differently. She felt suffocated by Kourtney's expectations, her constant demands for attention and reassurance. Kendall believed she had given enough, that she had shown love in her own ways, but nothing ever seemed to satisfy Kourtney's need for validation. The explosive friendship fight was not about one event. It was about years of unmet expectations colliding in a single moment of fury. And Khloé became the lightning rod. Every attempt she made to mediate was twisted into taking sides. When she offered comfort to Kourtney, Kendall saw betrayal. When she defended Kendall's independence, Kourtney felt abandoned. No matter what she said, no matter how carefully she chose her words, Khloé found herself accused of favoritism. And in that moment, She realized that being pulled into Kourtney and Kendall's explosive friendship fight was not about fixing it. It was about surviving it. The fight grew louder. Voices were raised, tears fell, and words that could never be taken back were spoken. Kourtney accused Kendall of being cold, distant, and selfish. Kendall countered with accusations that Kourtney was manipulative, needy, and incapable of respecting boundaries. Khloé's pleas for calm, her desperate attempts to remind them of love, were drowned in the noise of years of resentment spilling into the open. The world outside watched with fascination, but for Khloé, it was not entertainment, it was heartbreak. This was not just a storyline. This was her family, her sisters, her blood. She had always been the one to hold everyone together, but now even she felt powerless. How could she fix a wound that had been festering for years? How could she make peace when both sides believed peace meant betrayal? As the dust settled that night, nothing was resolved. Kourtney retreated into her silence, wounded and angry. Kendall left the room, her head held high but her heart aching. And Khloé sat alone, exhausted, wondering how a family built on love and loyalty had reached a point where sisters became enemies. In the weeks that followed, the explosive friendship fight became a shadow over every family gathering. Whispers of tension filled the air. The once effortless laughter was now forced, careful, fragile. Khloé continued to walk the tightrope, balancing love for both Kourtney and Kendall while sacrificing her own peace of mind. And though she tried to stay strong, the weight of it all began to take its toll. For Khloé Kardashian, being pulled into Kourtney and Kendall's explosive friendship fight was more than drama. It was a test of loyalty, patience, and strength. It was a reminder that fame, fortune, and cameras cannot shield anyone from the raw pain of family conflict. Sisters fight. Sisters wound each other. And sometimes sisters break. But perhaps the most haunting question remains. Can they heal? Or has the fight between Kourtney and Kendall left scars too deep for even Khloé to mend? The world continues to watch, waiting for answers, waiting for resolution, waiting to see if the bond of sisterhood can rise from the ashes of betrayal. Because in the end, this was never just a fight. It was a fracture. And fractures, no matter how carefully pieced back together, always leave cracks.